that time of the year where we're heading to the state finals. Shane, we got done today with the semifinal games, 1A, 2A, North and South. All the games were exactly what we anticipated. Very tight matchups. In Class 1A South, you had Tuscola winning 21-14 over Athens. Class 2A North saw GCMS take care of Newman 14-8. And Class 2A South sees Maroa Forsyth get back to the state championship game for the second year in a row after they beat Shelbyville 25-14. And then, of course, we had our great ball game in Lena, where Lena Winslow beat Forreston 12-8.
Right. You know, a lot of close games. Thankfully, you know, I've worried about that all week long. You know, we pumped the hell out of Lena Winslow and Forreston, and you're just glad to see it play out the way it did, because God forbid if that would have been like a 4-score blowout as to some of the people who were predicting that. I mean, you build it all year and all year and all year, and you really hope that that's what it was. And thank God it was.
Well, we kind of anticipate it to be that way.
Right.
We knew it was going to be low scoring.
We knew it was that way, but I mean, you're still
even
talking,
some of the players knew it was going to be a tight.
Right.
I mean, they knew what they were going up against. They went up against each other back in week 2. You know what you're going to meet when you've already played them before.
Right. I mean, you don't just outgain someone that much when you're both playing great football week in, week out. I mean, you don't have that separation.
So, interesting ball games, obviously. Shelbyville, Maroa Forsyth, we'll just recap 2A South here real quick to start off. But Shelbyville Maroa Forsyth took a 7-6 lead early in the game, and then it kind of started to expand there, becoming the 25-14 game that it was. And then, of course, Newman, GCMS got on the board first, 6-0. Newman gets the touchdown, 2-point conversion, takes the 8-6 lead. GCMS then comes back and scores to take the 12-6 lead. And then Newman turned the ball over, and then they end up getting a ball. They get the ball in their own end of the field. A fumble happens. It becomes a GCMS safety, and that becomes the final score of 14-8 there.
Yeah, I don't think many people really predicted Newman to lose that game. I know I had Newman and Maroa Forsyth in the state championship game. I know a lot of people did. But that's one of those things, GCMS, not to discredit what they've done, because, I mean, they've won all their games. And in big fashion, other than their tough contest with West Carroll, I mean, once again, I mean, we've been beating this horse all year. That just speaks to the NUIC. I mean, that game with West Carroll was a lot closer than the final score indicated. So, there again, I mean, we can just keep on, you know,
moving on.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, there were some things that happened, but really, despite some injuries that Newman did face, GCMS came to play, and they came out with the victory as expected.
Right.
Or not as expected, I'm sorry, but
they
earned their win, and that was predicted to be a good, close game.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we stated last week, one poll had GCMS favored by a score, the other one had Newman favored by a score. So really, you had a toss-up game.
Well, not to knock West Carroll, but, you know, we see on the message boards, people are asking GCMS who's the toughest defense they've played all year, and people are saying West Carroll. Not to discredit West Carroll, but if you're GCMS and your toughest defense was West Carroll, and you look at Newman, and it's like, oh man, we might be in a little bit of trouble, but that just goes to show that, you know, the track might not have been all that was cracked up to be this year.
Well, that's true, and I mean, I'm not going to discredit the Three Rivers Conference either, but I mean, it like you said, it touts what the NUIC is. Hats off to GCMS getting to the state championship game. This is 3 years in a row now that a Heart of Illinois Conference team is going to be represented at the 2A state championship game. So,
got a ways to go to match that record of the NUIC, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, they do, but, I mean, you got to start somewhere, and I'm telling you, the Heart of Illinois Conference is becoming that conference, especially in Central Illinois, that's becoming a power conference, and they're making it happen with your Tri-Valleys, your Deer Creek Mackinacs, and then now you got GCMS going. With that, obviously, GCMS has got a great road, but now they're going to play Maroa Forsyth. Maroa Forsyth is making their 9th trip to the state finals in school history, and this is their 7th trip in the last 12 seasons. And Maroa obviously only has the 2 state championship wins in 2006 and 2012, but to be there this now 7 times in 12 seasons, I mean, hats off to Coach Jostis and staff for getting Maroa Forsyth to the place that they're at and getting the Trojans to that perennial power place. I mean, obviously they come from the Sangamo Conference. The Sangamo is a very strong conference. They have another team today, Pleasant Plains, won their 3A South game, so they're going to be in the state championship game to face Immaculate Conception.
Right,
so
we can call that what that is. But yeah, I mean, it's Maroa Forsyth. I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I'm sure that it's probably along the lines of your top northern schools that no longer schedule Thanksgiving tournaments in basketball because they anticipate to be playing football still. I'm sure you have a similar situation with Maroa Forsyth down south because, I mean, they're there every year.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you look at from 2006 on, obviously you got the 7 state title trips now, but you have quarterfinal, semifinal, quarterfinal, semifinal. I mean, it consistently long runs into the playoffs. I mean,
well, and that's huge too. That builds programs. I mean, your freshmen come in and okay, Thanksgiving, then we head to Champaign, or in this case, we head to DeKalb.
Right.
You know, you put it on your calendar, and that's what you expect to be doing.
Right.
It's a hell of a program now.
Yes, it is. And, I mean, GCMS, obviously, this is their first ever trip to the title game in school history. So we'll break that. We won't break down the game, but we'll break down what our predictions are later in the segment. So let's roll on to Class 1A, where we have our NUIC representative, Lena Winslow. 1A South, Tuscola Athens, big game there. We knew it was going to be a big game. Athens actually scored on the opening kickoff, returned it for a touchdown, took a 7-0 lead. Tuscola eventually scored later on in the first half, missed the extra point. So Athens hung on for a 7-6 lead, but then eventually Tuscola started to wear away, getting a 21-7 lead before Athens finally scored in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes to go to make it the 21-14 final.
Close game.
Very close game.
And we kind of anticipated that. I mean, realistically, we had the 4 best teams in 1A left. 2 of them had to lose today, and I mean, they both came down to 1 score. So you can't really ask any more than that. But, I mean, we were split on that game. I think a lot of people were split on that game. But, you know, Tuscola is, I think, a little better than what they have been in the past few years of when they do send that representative to state.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think we only had 2 people. I think. I have to go back to check, but I think we only had 2 people that had Lena Winslow and Tuscola picked for the state final game. And one of them was our very own Carrie.
Yep, good job, Carrie.
Yeah, great job, Carrie. So, out of that...
Yeah, 2010 rematch.
It is. We have a 2010 rematch. I do not expect a 47-12 win for Lena Winslow by any stretch of the imagination. This is not the same Tuscola team. Do they still run out of the spread? Absolutely. This team is much different than those teams. And the difference is this team's still fast, but they're stout. They're big. The teams of the early part of this decade were more slender and fast.
Yeah.
They were more skill-type players, similar to what we see with our Ackwins and Stocktons currently, whereas these guys are more built like what we're expected to see with Lena Winslow and Forreston.
They're not one-dimensional, even though the stats show that they are. But yeah, definitely not what we've normally seen, and I'm hopeful that translates into a true state championship game, and hopefully that we didn't just witness the state championship game like years past.
Right. So let's go into that game breakdown, and we're going to bring that up to you right now. Okay, Shane, so today we had Forreston and Lena Winslow. Obviously a very great game. First half stats were very close. Lena Winslow had 129 first half yards to Forreston's 94 yards, but it was clearly evident that Lena Winslow was the dominant team in the first half on the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, it wasn't even close, really. You get to the half, and it's 12-8, and we've seen a few games like that this year where one team should probably have a few more points than they did. But realistically, the sum of the game was missed opportunities on both sides. It just happens to be that Lena scored more points and came out with the win. I mean, Forreston was knocking on the door, had a 4th and goal from the 5 in the first half. Incomplete pass, and then they finally did get on the scoreboard with that, whatever you want to call that, pass coverage by Lena Winslow there, where Christensen a juke and a dive and off to the races he went. But then you also saw Lena Winslow with their favorite pass when everybody's getting sucked in. There it goes. So, missed opportunities on both sides, but an overall pretty outstanding game. I mean, we've been covering football for a long time. We've watched a lot of games, had the opportunity to see a lot of good games based on where we used to go to school and seeing those types of playoff games. And, I'll go ahead and say that's probably one of the best games I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure.
Not to mention at a semifinal level. Just you couldn't ask for anything more than that.
I mean, honestly, like you said, semifinal level, that's probably the best game I've seen since 1999, Dakota and Carthage.
Right, yeah.
That was a hell of a game.
Right, exactly.
Just comparing low-scoring, defensive-type games.
Right.
Just, pounding each other, beating each other at will. Great football game.
Right.
And, hats off to Forreston. Great season. Finished their high school careers, the seniors, with a 14-2 record in the playoffs.
16 games in the playoffs.
16 games. So that's 2 games shy of 2 full seasons additional played.
Right.
That's amazing. So, if you're Forreston, you cannot hang your head. You've played a total of 52 games. That's an average of 13 games a year, which means that's a semifinal appearance per year.
That's something.
And obviously, we're in 3 of them.
Right. You probably won't see that ever again. I mean, I won't say ever, but the odds of seeing that ever again from a specific class, very unlikely. You're starting to talk back to the dates of those great teams that we saw in the early to mid to late 2000s. I mean, just perennial
powers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say once in a generation, but they're a in a decade type team.
I mean, yeah. Cause
I'm going to go more decades
right.
Because you see it through decades.
It comes in waves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this Forreston team was one of those once in a decade type teams.
Right.
And
that just speaks to volumes where Lena Winslow's playing at right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Lena Winslow's playing like we've seen it all year.
You're going from last year, a close game in the first round, or not the first round, the first matchup, to a blowout in the playoffs, to a win in week 2, to a win again in the playoffs against state championship team. No doubt, Lena Winslow has gained momentum, and obviously in the state championship again. Really not much to say as far as that's concerned. I mean, the strides that they've made in these 2 groups playing each other, because, Forreston didn't graduate a lot. I mean, yeah, they lost a lot. They're not the same team they were.
No.
But in order to make that up what they did, that's outstanding by Lena Winslow.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those things. I've said it before. Lena Winslow was one of those teams I identified before last season ever began as being a 2017 title contender. And a lot of it had to do with the fact of what they had currently going into the 2016 season. Their youth, obviously, because, they're carried by a couple seniors, but they still have juniors and sophomores starting on their teams that are helping impact moments of their teams.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you see. It's just like when we identified Forreston last year, we knew that coming off their sophomore year, they were a second-round loss to Stark County, but you just knew what they had coming back, that was going to be a team to watch. So when you start looking at that, it's very easy to start identifying what's going to happen and take place. It's like Sean Ormston. He's only a sophomore, obviously, and so is Isaiah Bruce.
Right.
those were two guys. Isaiah Bruce, more so specifically. I mean, he was a guy that you knew was going to be here this year and be an impact player. And then even in the off season, I mean, I kept hearing about Sean all off season. He's a kid to watch, and sure enough, he is.
Right, and I mean, it's safe to say that Lena Winslow would not be here without those two. And I mean, so much is put on the shoulders of Valentine and what he's able to do in the game. But to have your season to rely on, basically, not to single out anybody because the offensive and defensive lines speak for themselves, to say the least. But, I mean, your key specialist, to have your season really rely, on two seniors and two sophomores, so to speak, is just outstanding.
Right. I mean, and let's not forget Michael Jones, because he is
Right.
one of the senior linemen that, and Noah Hillman, too. They're both seniors this year to go with Ty Chrisman and Ravion. But that's four guys.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple others, too. Noah Trumpy, but... Yeah,
So, I mean,
it's a youth
right.
movement in Lena Winslow right now.
Well,
and I mean,
and it's exciting, not to cut you off, because
it is.
We could go back a year and we're breaking down the Forreston State Championship, and we both are getting giddy because it's like, all right, because this team's going to be back here next year. I mean, outside of a couple guys from Lena Winslow,
this team is going to be back here next year.
Exactly. So, but on the other hand, we're not talking about Forreston right now. We're talking about Lena Winslow. Obviously, it remains to be seen next year whether someone can knock Lena Winslow off the way Lena Winslow has knocked Forreston off. But you can't take anything for granted once you get to this stage, because you never know if you're going to get back here. A lot relies on talent, but also a lot relies on luck as well.
It does. I mean, you have to have a lot of luck to get where you are. Experience comes a long way. Obviously, they were in the quarterfinals last year. Semifinals, going to the state championship game this year. You're building that. And, I mean, we've stated it before. I mean, if you are perennially getting to the second round, you're going to make your program better just by doing that year in and year out, because every kid gets that 2 additional weeks minimum of practice over everybody else in the area. So that's what builds your program.
Really does speak as to how difficult it is, because I mean, yes, Lena Winslow has had state championships in 2010 and 2013, but it's 2017, so this is a whole different group of kids that wasn't playing at that level. I mean, Ravion Valentine was not in the program when Lena last won their state championship in 2013.
Right.
So when you start getting 4 years removed, this is a whole new batch of kids that you kind of got to build the success up with again. So that speaks a lot as far as Lena Winslow's program and what they've been able to do under Rick Aaron.
Right, and hats off to Ravion. He broke 2,000 yards. Based off of our stats today, he is sitting at 2,017 yards in the 2017 season. So,
and give that, and he'll probably come up with a little more because,
well, he's going to come up with more.
I mean, as far as that number alone, because, our stats might not be exactly on, so might be one of those Wednesday, hey, Valentine got 50 more yards. Obviously not that many, but you get what my point is.
Yes, I do.
I can only see so much.
I mean, I did see that last week at the Lena Winslow-Ackland game. I had Ravion for 248, and then I find out he's at 258. But,
right,
they have official stat keepers for that purpose.
Right. We try our best.
Yeah. So
better than the papers.
Very much so better than the papers. So, back to the game, though. Second half was clearly dominated by Forreston.
Oh, absolutely.
As Forreston outgained Lena Winslow in the second half, 189 yards to 73 yards.
And you could see it early. I mean, by the fourth quarter, Forreston was finally wearing down that defensive line for Lena Winslow and opening up the holes for Christensen and Fox. Ran out of time, though.
Right. So, I mean, you break that down. Total yardage was in favor of Forreston. 283 yards for Forreston, 202 yards for Lena Winslow. And Lena Winslow comes out with a 12-8 victory.
Yeah, 12-8 at halftime. I would not have anticipated no scoring in the second half, but also,
I don't think anybody would.
Right,
sorry.
But if you're Denny Diddick and Forreston, and someone tells you that you hold, Valentine to
129 yards.
129 yards.
Or 22.
122, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
You hold Valentine to 122 yards on 32 carries, and you only give up 202 yards of offense, my guess is Diddick will take that anytime you feel pretty good about yourself, but it's kind of what we go back to talking about on the way to doing this tonight. This game was more about the defensive front of Lena Winslow and controlling this game.
Well, and like we've said before, when you have Michael Jones, Ian Keel, Isaiah Bruce, and Parker McGee, you're talking what we've already identified as probably the best. The best.
Right.
And looking at today's 2A matchups, I'm going to say that they are the best front four in 1A and 2A.
Right.
I mean, they're no longer one of the best. They are the best.
That's not even a bold statement anymore. I mean, they've proven it so much.
Yes.
So, and once again, man, they're young.
I know. My gosh. I mean, okay, so outside of Michael Jones, those three all come back.
Right.
It's amazing.
Right. And
pick and plug. I mean,
right.
It's one of those things. I mean, talking to Coach Aaron after the game today, he's sitting there giving us grief because we're constantly picking against them.
We got a lot of that today.
And he's like, you guys doubt us every week, but hey, keep doubting us because we keep winning. It's like,
well, not every week. I think I've picked against Lena Winslow twice this year as well, and I think you did as well. I mean,
yeah, I only picked.
Forreston,
yeah,
so.
That's true. It is. They were both games against Forreston, but. I mean,
realistically,
I remember last year saying the same thing, though. Why do I keep betting against Coach Aaron?
Right. Well, and realistically, I mean, these two teams, put the names in a hat, draw a name. It's not a bad pick, in my opinion. I mean, these two teams
game clearly could have went either way.
These two teams are so evenly matched. I just wish we could see more of it.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things that we were talking before we ever came off air, It's like one of them classic World Series. If this were a 7-game series, this is going to go full 7 games, I think. I mean, right now, Lena would be up 0-2 or 2-0, but, I mean, you could definitely take it either way. I mean, obviously, both teams had missed opportunities. Once again, though, Lena capitalizes on those missed opportunities. None more so than the big play from Ty Chrisman to Gage Schwartz in the first half to get that second touchdown, which proved to be the game-winning touchdown.
How many times haven't we seen that where Lena Winslow will get you keyed in on Valentine and Armstrong, and then boom, it's either Schwartz or Bruce wide open on the end. So
right, I mean, and it was one of those plays too. I mean, it was one of that. Yeah, exactly.
You could feel it coming.
You could feel it coming, and it was one of those plays where you saw Gage release off the line, and I don't know where the defense was. I mean, it was picked up just a little bit late, obviously, because as soon as Gage Schwartz got the ball and caught it, feet down in the end zone, he was immediately hit.
Right, and that ball was in the air for quite a while too.
I mean, Crispin has proven time and time. I mean, gosh, he's thrown probably 70% completion rate.
Right, and I mean, we haven't seen it yet. And I'm probably going to say that West Carroll will probably take the quarterback all conference. I would assume would be my guess, but I mean, Crispin, in my opinion, Crispin is a first-team all-conference player. He just doesn't get the recognition because they don't have to need him.
Right. And, I mean, Cody Plattenberger at West Carroll was fun to watch as well. I mean, we've talked about that before, especially when they lost. Yeah, it's numbers. And, I mean, Cody's put up great numbers as well. But, I mean, what Ty Crispin is doing right now for Lena Winslow is exactly what we saw out of Hunter Dawes for Forreston this year and last year.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, today, if you were to compare QB to QB, Ty Crispin won the battle. And I think he threw only, one pass?
One pass for 27, I think, is what it was, that touchdown pass.
So, yeah, he only threw the one pass, 27 yards, touchdown. But how many carries did Lena Winslow have in the game? I mean, how many rushing attempts?
Right.
It was a lot.
I mean, you had 32 from Valentine alone. 43 for 4. You're looking at about 50 carries on the game.
Right, and this game went by very fast as we predicted. You get 2 running games going.
It wasn't even 3 o'clock. It was half time.
Well, exactly. I mean, kickoff was 2 o'clock. First quarter ended 19 minutes after opening kickoff.
Right.
In a 12-minute quarter game.
Right.
And the clock is continually running.
Last week it was already a 4-score game, you know?
Yeah, well, last week, Lena Winslow-Acklin, that first quarter took 45 minutes to play, just to give you a little bit of a comparison and differences of games.
Right, and we knew that was going to happen when you get 2 running games. That's why, because, I mean, you're looking at, 6, 7, 8 possessions. They're all you're going to get, so you have to capitalize when you get those. And to be honest, I thought Forreston kind of showed up a little bit, I don't want to say lackadaisical because that's a bad comparison, but they were flat, so to speak. So, by the time Forreston gets going into what they do, you're already down 12-0, and that really hurt them today.
Oh, it did. It did, because obviously it was something they could not recover. I mean, granted, when they got the touchdown to basically end the first half of play to make the score 12-8.
Momentum.
They had the momentum, and they were receiving the ball to come out to start the second half. So you knew, and if you didn't know, then you obviously have not paid much attention to what Forreston does on the season. But you just knew that Forreston was going to come out and put together a drive.
Well, and they did. They
did.
marched the ball 45 yards only to turn it over on downs, but you could feel it. Okay, Forreston's going to come out at halftime and maybe have the momentum. We'll see if they go ahead here. That momentum swiftly ended.
Well, it did, because that Lena Winslow defense, that defensive line that we keep talking about, just kept swarming.
Right.
And swarming. And basically, I mean, we've already seen things where Coach Diddick is getting a lot of grief for play calling. You know what? You can sit there and question it all you want. In reality, at some point, you have to give Lena Winslow the credit.
Right.
And today, that was the thing, because what I saw with Coach Diddick is he was trying to do whatever he could to get the ball to move. And he'll admit, they left some plays out on the field, and I'm not going to disagree with that, because I saw opportunities that Forreston did have that they just did not complete. But I'm going to sit there and tell you that the Lena Winslow defense prevented those opportunities at the exact same time.
Well, and
they played lights out.
And it's unfortunate that we even have to talk about this, because you're talking about, I mean, for the love of God, we're sitting here talking about 14-2 on a senior class. This is the kind of shit you have to address. I mean, it's absolute BS, bullshit, that you have to deal with this from people who don't have a damn clue. Sorry, but, it tends to piss you off.
Come back, Salty. Come back.
But, I mean,
no, it does.
You shouldn't be addressing that. I mean,
you're talking about
coach is on the fringe of getting you to your 3rd state championship.
In 4 years.
Right. So, I mean, if you want to look for something to complain about, I guess you might need to reassess what you're looking at, because you don't have a clue.
Right. I mean, we could sit here and think of a couple plays, but when you really add up those plays that you could question, you're talking about 10 plays out of the entire day, if that. And at some point, you have to do those plays just to throw something different so you don't become predictable.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, you're sitting here in a semifinal game. Play calling isn't week 2 against the Little Sisters of the Poor, I mean, you're on your way to a state championship game. I mean, every play call is huge.
Yes.
You make mistakes. You learn from it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean,
they didn't lose because of his play calling.
No, exactly. They did not lose because of their play calling. They lost because Lena Winslow clearly was the more dominant team today at the line of scrimmage, exactly where we knew that the game was going to be won.
Hopefully we can put that to bed, all that garbage. But yeah, I mean, today was more about Lena Winslow than it was Forreston. And, I mean, people use the cliche, it's sad that one of these teams had it. It's football. Last I checked, 2 teams don't win a state championship.
Somebody had to go home today.
Right. And
how many times it sucks that one of them had to go home.
In my personal opinion, after seeing legitimately state championships in the 2nd round, be thankful you got it in the semifinals if that's what it's going to come down to, rather than the second round that we've seen year and year when the quadrants were in place.
Yes, I agree. You have to be thankful for that because literally this year, as we keep stating, you had the 4 best teams competing for the chance to play for DeKalb in the state title. So, yes, one of them had to go home. Today, it was Athens and Forreston that went home. So, that gives us our rematch of Lena Winslow and Tuscola. Granted, both being you picked Forreston against Parker's wishes.
I know.
We lost a bet.
Or we're walking out of a restaurant and get heckled by the team. It's all in fun.
Yes, I mean, a couple of the guys obviously were giving us some
I think they all would have if they were all sitting at the same table.
I agree. Loved it. I loved it, actually, to be honest. So, I mean, Ravion, Isaiah, Ty, Parker, and the rest of the guys, thank you for calling us out on that. We much appreciate it because, I mean, we'll be the first ones to tell you when we're wrong, and today we were wrong. So there you have it. It does happen. As far as Carrie, she did pick the state title game, Lena Winslow and Tuscola. Perfect pick. She obviously wanted that 2010 rematch once again. But,
and hoping for the same result, no doubt.
On top of that, there was a little side bet as I had a little off-screen conversation with Parker well before this game. And I just would like to thank Andrea and Steve and Parker at Coaches for the great hospitality for all of us. We much appreciate everything that you guys provided us today. As far as Coach Diddick and Coach Aaron, me and Shane would much be appreciative and thankful for what you guys have provided us for our pre-game content because, as we stated before, we put a lot of work and a lot of effort to put this game together to give you all the anticipated build-up for that game.
Right, and anytime you get, I mean, coaches are busy this time of year getting their game plan together, and anytime you can get, interview questions answered, that's all the better, which we greatly appreciate. Getting us the content to allow us to do what we do, to spread it out, and it's nice for everybody.
It is. I mean, we talked to many different people a day. Much appreciative of all of your kind words and the compliments that you guys have given us as far as what we do here at NUICFF.
As well as Lena Winslow High School allowing us to cover today's game as well.
Yes, so thank you to the athletic director, Tom Smargessi. We appreciate the access that you did provide us today. Goes a long way for what we are trying to accomplish for the area, the players, the coaches, and trying to get our conference basically advertised around and throughout the state, both to college coaches and recruiters alike, and get recognition to our conference and give it the recognition it most deservedly has. So, man, what a game.
And what a day.
So,
excuse me.
That's all right. Again, much appreciation for everything. But now it's time to break down our state championship game, Lena Winslow and Tuscola. So our state championship match is going to be the #1 ranked Lena Winslow Panthers, who come into this game with a 13-0 record, against the #2 Tuscola Warriors, as they also come in with that matching undefeated 13-0 record. Ironically, we have the top 2 teams ranked in state.
How often does that happen?
Yeah, not very often. As we mentioned before, Tuscola came away with that 21-14 win over Athens. This making their 6th trip to the state finals since 2006. So this is their 6th trip to the state finals in the past 12 seasons. Their first trip since the 2011 season. In their 5 previous state title trips, Tuscola is 2-3. All 3 of their losses are to NUIC teams. 2007, they lost to Galena 35-7. 2010, they lost to Lena Winslow 47-12. And then the very next year, 2011, their last trip to the state finals, they lost to Dakota 41-27. Now they get a square off with Lena Winslow once again. And this is not the same Tuscola team, like we mentioned already, that we've seen in the early 2010 years, the 2010-11, where they were more smaller and faster. This team is fast, but they're stout as well.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but if you're looking for another game, I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong here, as I'm sure you would be as well. I'd love to see a blowout that brings in a title to Northwest State, part of the state. But I just don't anticipate it. I mean, we're talking about linemen that are going to Oklahoma State. I mean, it's a little better than a D3 or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's a Big 12.
I mean, no knock on D3 schools.
Right. No.
You're talking about a Big 12 Division I school.
Right. So, and I mean, that's something you kind of see down in that area too. I mean, with Monroe Forsyth and with Hockaday going to Iowa, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean, the state championships come up here, but it seems like the southern teams have more teams or more guys going D1, it seems like, than what we see up here, which, whatever. I mean, that's
another reason why we do what we do.
Right. But if you're anticipating another, 41-27 with Dakota and whatever Lena Winslow's score was the first time, I just don't see it happening. Especially if the weather's nice and Tuscola is able to pass. As good as Lena Winslow's defense has been, if there's one way to attack them, it is to pass. We even saw that today with Forreston as well. In Aquin, first team Aquin on first team Lena Win was still able to get
over 300 yards.
Right.
Yep. And
Tuscola's passing game is every bit as good, if not better, than Aquin's as well. So that's an area of concern, but I just don't see it. But, I'd love to be proven wrong.
Well, that's just it. I mean, let's break down Tuscola real quick here so we can get some identification and numbers out there. Quarterback is Luke Sluter. Going into today's game with Athens, he was 107 completions on 181 attempts for 1,851 yards, 22 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and he had 148 rushing attempts for 890 yards. Obviously, most of their offense goes...
That's 2,600 yards for one guy.
Yes. 2,600, and then, you take basically out of that, you're looking at 4,300 yards of offense, so 2,600 of it coming through the QB alone.
Right, there's half,
Over half.
Right, exactly.
So over half their offenses ran through the QB.
But, on the other hand, you have Mr. Valentine, who accounts for how much of Lena Winslow's offense.
Well, I mean, if you look at actually what Ravion has on the season, so he's at 2,017 yards, or right in that ballpark range based off of our numbers from today. So 2,017 yards out of now over 5,100 yards on the season.
Not quite half.
No, not quite half, but you're right. He's pretty close to half of Lee Wynn's offense. So,
obviously, two players of the game to watch.
Yes, and you look at, Luke Sluter's key target is Dalton Hole. I mean, this is a 4-year wide receiver for Tuscola. He's not very big. He's only about 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", right in there. Jeez. 150 pounds. But, I mean, he's quicker than snot, has great hands. And, I mean, he's hauled in. Going into today's game, he's had 41 receptions for 889 yards and 16 touchdowns. So, I mean, you can compare him to a Zach Cummins or a Bryce Carlson or a Caden Getz as far as our area is concerned.
Right, so he might be over 1,000 by now. I mean, depending on the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is pretty remarkable for a receiver in 1A football.
Yes, very good. And obviously, when you got 1,851 yards passing, you're going to have somebody that's the main target, and that's him. Now, another thing that, Tuscola does run the ball, and their running back / fullback also doubles as their linebacker, and that's Andrew Erickson. And on the year going into today's game, he had 604 yards and 19 touchdowns. And I mean, he's a pretty stout guy. I mean, he's about 212 pounds, roughly, in that ball range. So, I mean, he does have a lot of power, and obviously he plays middle linebacker as well. So, I mean,
Right.
you're talking about a lot of poundage right there.
You're talking about, I mean, a lot of poundage, but on the other hand, I'm confident in saying that Lena Winslow isn't going to see anything out of Erickson that they haven't seen in the top backs out of our conference.
Correct.
You're looking at his numbers, you're right around that 600 for 80-some attempts, a little over 6 yards to carry. That's great, don't get me wrong, but when you got A.J. Christensen, Valentine, all over 10, you're not going to be intimidated by that in any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, no. I mean, honestly, I'm going to be really surprised. And I'm not trying to light any fires here, per se.
Right.
I'm going to be surprised if Erickson breaks 100 yards against Lena Winslow. Right. I just don't see where he's going to have that success against their defense. Well, because that's the one area that Lena Winslow's very good at.
Yeah, and, I mean, we could pull up Lena Winslow's stats on the year, but have they allowed a 100-yard rushing back all year?
Yes, AJ.
In week
2, he ran for 102 yards.
Okay, so barely.
Yeah, and barely. That's an all-state running back.
Right. So
one that has over 3,000 career yards.
And like you said, not to light any fires of bulletin board material, because that's not what we do, and I don't care if that's what you need to do in order to get fired up for a state championship.
If you're getting fired up for that for a state championship game, you shouldn't be there.
But I just don't, like you said, I mean, Lena Winslow's done a good job of shutting down the run, and, this is one of those games where you do shut down the run. Tuscola becomes even more one-dimensional, which, falls right into your defense as well.
It does. But now, here's the other thing. Because Tuscola also has Noah Pierce, and he also can be that slot receiver / second running back, as he has come in with 503 yards rushing on 11 touchdowns, and he's caught 24 balls for 385 yards going into today's game with another 2 touchdowns. So he's not used a lot in the receiving area, but he's used more for like a first down type wide receiver, getting the big yards when you need them. Obviously, 24 receptions, 385 yards, so he's clearly over 10 yards or a catch.
Right.
Type guy.
Yeah, I mean, and Tuscola has the weapons. I mean, we're not going to say that they don't have the weapons, but it all starts with Sluter. For every pass he throws, he's pulling that ball back and keeping it himself. So that's obviously something you're going to see with the jet sweep on Tuscola. We've seen that year in, year out with them. That's their bread and butter.
Well, I mean, honestly, this Tuscola team reminds me a lot about last year's St. Teresa team.
Exactly, and we saw how that went.
Yeah.
Not to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We've seen that result. It's not an offense that isn't countered with something we can deal with.
Right. Now, the one, obviously, the big area of concern, like you brought on, was, Lena Winslow's pass defense. They gave up 386 yards passing last week to Aquin, which Aquin is a premier passing team.
And they still won the game.
Big.
Exactly.
Because once you shut down one element of the game, and you have a team that can run the ball, you now are playing that team and the clock, like you stated last week with Aquin.
Well, that's just it. And, most offensive coordinators, you'll ask them, what will be the, for a spread team, what's the most important thing in order to get the passing game open? Well, it's the running game. They go hand in hand. You don't get the running game going, you don't get the passing game going. If you don't get the passing game going, you don't get the running game going.
Right.
I mean, they both rely on each other. Tuscola, I mean, you look at their numbers, they're not one-dimensional.
No, they can come at you at many different
And if
fronts.
you find a one-dimensional team at this stage of the game, they haven't played a good competition. This, to me, on paper, tells me that Tuscola is not one-dimensional and that they have played good opponents.
We know that they have.
Exactly.
I mean, heck, they played the 2A semifinalists that Maroa Forsyth beat today.
Right.
To a 47-44 score. And you saw what Maroa won that game by. It was 25-14, so it's not like it was a runaway game.
Right, and that also tells me that Tuscola is packing more in 1A South than what 2A South is.
Right, exactly. So, I agree.
Take it with a grain. I mean, let's not forget, Tuscola was in 2A and ranked in 2A pools all year, and then we slide down, and here we are. I mean, that's not an issue with that at all as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we're not talking private school here, but, that's a 2A school, so to speak. That's right on the border.
Right, and
so
I mean, theoretically, they've always been on the border.
Exactly.
I mean, in 2011, when, like we said, when Dakota beat them, That was the lowest year we've seen in the last 10 years where the enrollment was at 299.
Right.
And Tuscola was that team.
And they slid in.
Yeah.
Right.
So here again, they're the top team in the Class 1A as far as enrollment's concerned.
Right. So I mean, my point being is that, you know, people talk about that differential, but realistically, there isn't one.
I don't care about the enrollment. I mean, people can take their enrollment BS and throw it out the window, because back in the 6-class system, we've only been in the 8-class system since 2001.
Right.
So when it was 6-class and 5-class for every other year prior, your cutoff was much higher than it is today. So what the heck are you complaining about?
Exactly.
I mean,
hey, people complain about much less than that.
Yeah. It's 1A. Tuscola is 1A. Don't care what you think. They're 1A team.
Exactly.
Just like St. Teresa. Everybody was scared about St. Teresa. We knew they weren't going to be what everybody talked them up to be. If you're that afraid of a team, you don't deserve to be in the state championship game. And the teams that were complaining about them, they're sitting at home watching this.
Well, I can guarantee Lena Winslow's not going to be afraid of anybody.
They shouldn't be.
In my opinion, you just beat one of the best teams.
You beat the number 3 ranked team in state that is the defending state champ. So what do you have to be afraid about?
You knock Goliath off, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, but you can't let that be your Super Bowl either.
No, you can't. You got to come ready, because this is going to be a matchup. There's no doubt about that.
Because, I mean, as a Lena Windslow in someone's huddle like that, I mean, you look at the schedule and, you circle that game. That's your big game. You put all your energy into beating Forreston not once but twice. You just can't drop off now. I mean, you're so close to bringing it. You just got to stay hungry.
So, I mean, well, before we get to some of the linemen, let's take a little bit of comparison. So you got Luke Sluter, multi-dimensional, much like Jonah Deemer, Hayden Fox, like we've seen over the last 2 seasons, okay? Lena Winslow counters that. Ty Chrisman, very athletic guy, QB, tough runner, gets out on blocks even at the QB position. You expect that. He was a tight end last year, turned to a QB. He's going to get out on blocks, block people. He's a hard-nosed player, okay? Andrew Erickson, he's your fullback. Sean Ormiston, okay? Noah Pierce pretty much is Ravion Valentine. In my opinion, Ravion Valentine's a 2-time All-State player. Who are you going to take? I'm taking Ravion.
Tough call.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, their premier receiver is Dalton Holt. And then their second receiver is Noah Pierce, the slot receiver / running back. So now you have Isaiah Bruce and Parker McGee to choose from to match up with that, including Gage Schwartz, another running back that Lena Winslow has in their arsenal. Who's got more weapons here?
Right.
My opinion, Lena Winslow.
Of course. That's what we've talked about Lena Winslow all season, really. I mean, their weapons compared to other teams. The closest team that we saw to have as many weapons as Lena Winslow, they just beat. So, you're not going to see a team, in my opinion, I mean, you can take it for what you want. They're not going to find a team that has more weapons than what Forreston did.
No, so let's take a look at their linemen. Obviously, we've already mentioned D1 recruit Hunter Woodard, 6'6", 289 pounds, committed to Oklahoma State.
Hello.
Great. And he is. I'm not going to kid you. I've watched the kid on film. I've seen him in pictures.
We've been
anticipating. We've talked to his dad on forums. Very good player. Very strong player. Very mechanical in what he does. I mean, he's got good mechanics for a lineman, both offensively and defensively.
To be a commit to a big 12 school,
you
wouldn't expect anything else.
Now, there are some things that I do see that are flaws in his game that I'm sure that most likely at Oklahoma State he's going to be a redshirt, so he's going to learn some of these things. But one of the biggest things is he's slow off the ball. Very strong.
Right.
So obviously he can overcome his slowness with strength.
But a guy that big, slow off the ball, get low.
Yeah. It comes down to pad level.
Yep.
Stay low, bust off the line, knock him backwards. You just created him.
Neutralized him.
Exactly. So.
And nobody's better at getting low than Lena Winslow.
Exactly. And I mean, you got Braden Von Lincoln. He's 6'2", 244. He is a junior, very good, very solid player as well. Actually having a breakout type season this year in his junior year, which is much to the efforts of what the Tuscola Warriors are doing. So you got to give him credit there. And then you got a smaller guy, about my stature, obviously about 30 pounds lighter than me, but same height, in Adam Miller, and he actually leads all the D linemen with 62 tackles and 14 tackles for a loss. So what's that tell me?
He's very good.
He's very strong and very fast.
Right.
And he can beat you off the line.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean,
he's going to be undersized, but you cannot overlook what he can do.
Right, and the most impressive part, because I mean, we look at Tuscola every year when we're trying to figure this out, because
how can you not?
Right, but like we mentioned earlier, I mean, this is just an all different line presence than what we've seen in the past. And I mean, you look at those three guys as your leaders, and those are three great guys that you haven't always seen in the past. And I mean,
right.
It's not a shock to see the success they've had, and to have one of their smallest linemen lead the team on tackles, not to mention tackles for loss. He's getting through the line.
Yes, and then that comes back to strength and speed. I mean, when
Right.
you're 5'8" and 175 pounds, you better have something.
Right.
I guarantee this kid's probably benching close to 300, if not over 300
Right.
pounds. That's the kind of strength we're talking about.
Right.
Well, when you got offensive linemen that weigh 300 pounds benching 300 pounds, who are you going to take in that matchup?
Right.
I'm taking the 175-pound kid benching 300 plus
Exactly.
in that matchup, because he's going to beat
Strength.
you off the ball, and he's just as strong.
Exactly.
And that's what Adam Miller provides for the Tuscola defense. Now, let's take a look at the line for Lena Winslow. You counter that with Ian Keel, who is only a junior, first-team All-Stater. Michael Jones, who you could put up a great argument for being an All-Stater.
Right.
And then you have Noah Hillman. And then on the defensive side, there you have it again, Isaiah Bruce and Parker McGee. I mean, you're talking, like we keep saying, you're talking about the best 1A, 2A line collectively for Lena Winslow.
Right.
Across both classes.
Oh, yeah. Not to mention the fact that they really they really haven't been challenged up until, the last part of today is when they really started to kind of slow down a little bit. But other than that, and I mean, that's to be expected when you're only playing a half a game. But with that being said, you look at Tuscola's line, and I anticipated another good matchup here on the line,
Definitely.
Well.
I mean, you don't get Big 12 Division I offers if you're not good. And, I mean, for Von Lincoln being only a junior, I mean, okay, Ian Keel's only a junior.
Right.
You can start throwing comparisons. You can start throwing weights around. I mean, Von Lincoln matches up with what Ian Keel is to a T. Same height, same weight.
Who's
going to win the battle and get off the ball? That's where it's going to come down to.
And, I'd love to see that actually be all out what I hope it's cracked up to be. I mean,
yes.
from a Lena Winslow perspective, obviously we want them to win that battle, but nothing would be greater than to see an even line battle. I mean, we haven't seen that yet.
No. I mean, because Lena Winslow's just been that dominant. And, I mean, we saw that today. That
the first 3 quarters, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just...
Yeah, Forreston started to get that line play going.
Right. Well,
because
they're up tempo.
They're very much up tempo, and they were firing at the end of the game, wearing that Lena Winslow line down.
Well, and that just goes to speak to what, Coach Diddick has done.
Right.
Of course, you get to that mentality, so you play and you play and you play, and then you finish them off in the fourth.
Correct. And that's exactly what Forreston's MO was, but Lena Winslow was able to play a full 48 minutes today. They got a 4-quarter game in. They did a hell of a job sustaining every last rush that they could give, and they won the game, and deservedly so.
Right, and so my point being is, Lena Winslow, as far as this goes, I don't think you're going to see anything more than what you've already seen now as far as tempo and a potential to be out of shape because, I mean, if anything, Forreston has helped groom Lena Winslow for a big battle on the line this coming week.
Yes, exactly. Now, this is Lena Winslow's third trip to state in 8 years. Obviously, they won in 2010 against Tuscola, and then they won again in 2013 against Tri-Valley, when Tri-Valley was one of those teams that made it down to the 1A level. Big win in 2010, as we stated, 47-12 over Tuscola. A much closer win in 2013, the last time that Lena Winslow made it state in DeKalb.
Right.
And they pulled that one off 28-21. So, obviously, both these teams have 2 state titles under their belt. One team is obviously undefeated at state and has been there just as many times in the last 8 seasons as Tuscola. So, there's a lot of intrigue in this matchup,
right.
especially being a replacement or a repeatable game from another a rematch, basically,
right.
2010.
And as someone who didn't put the pads on or was in the program, I asked you this question because I'm sure people are going to say this, and I mean it's different than college and the pros where you siphon the kids out. But does that 2010 carry over to this matchup at all?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
right.
not. The only thing it can do
you would
is build up confidence.
Right.
That's the only thing you can use it for.
Well, and I mean confidence for Lena Winslow, and you also hope that it wouldn't put doubt in the opposition as well.
Right. I mean, if I'm Tuscola, I'm sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I'm playing an NUIC team again. We suck against the NUIC, basically.
Right.
No disrespect to Tuscola. They've had great teams. You have to respect what they've done. They've been great.
Exactly.
So I have no disrespect for Tuscola. I think they have an awesome program. Deservedly so. I mean, trip number 6 in 12 seasons. How can you say that they suck?
Anybody would take that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
our best. Yeah, Stockton's had 6 trips since 1975.
Right. And they haven't always come home with the win.
No.
So
with a win for Lena Winslow, if they do pull out the victory, Coach Aaron is just 1 win away from tying former Hall of Fame Dakota coach Jerry Lano at number 3 all-time on the NUIC wins list with 179 wins. So, first off, congratulations to Coach Aaron for this milestone. Obviously, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame earlier this year. Illustrious career at Lena Winslow to this point.
Yeah.
He's made the playoffs every year, with the exception of his second year at the helm of the Panthers.
Well, and wouldn't that be something? I mean, him and Jerry are real good friends, and
very close.
I mean, if you get to that win, it also gives you the same amount of state championships as well. So, I mean, they would virtually be tied.
Right.
I mean, other than win percentages, but I mean,
yes.
that's what you're at.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure if you're a Panther fan, you'd gladly take that right now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you just can't not. So, big game. Lena Winslow, Tuscola. Basically, we told you every reason why this is not going to be a typical blowout game. So, if you think, for whatever reason, that this is going to be a blowout game, just don't even talk to me.
Right, and I think this is where we're supposed to pick against Lena Winslow. I think that's how this works here. So
that's what Coach Aaron wants. I mean, that's what he told us today, right?
I guess
we keep doubting him.
Are we supposed to fake pick against them here? Because I tell you what, I'm going to take the Panthers in this one over Tuscola by 2 scores.
Yeah, I too like Lena Winslow.
Easy there.
Not Tuscola. I like Lena Winslow in this game. So, Coach Aaron, I'm sorry, but I am going to pick for you this week.
Right. And we didn't feel pressured into that pick.
No, we're not. We're definitely not pressured in this pick. So now it's up to you and the boys to make sure that happens. I, too, like the 2-score victory. And both polls actually are very similar in what they see. One poll has Lena Winslow as a 6-point favorite, while the other has Lena Winslow as a 10-point favorite.
Okay.
So very, like we said, this is going to be a tight game.
Right.
It is really, 6 to 10 points really is a toss-up
score.
Yes.
Basically, by the time you average out to 2, that's 8 points.
That's a score.
That's a score.
So, a scored game generally makes us say that's a toss-up game.
Right.
But I do like Lena Winslow. I think that they have the line power that we've discussed with the speed and the strength to be able to withstand everything and pull out at least a 2-score victory. Going back to the Class 2A bracket, we have the GCMS Falcons against powerhouse Maroa Forsyth Trojans. Obviously, Maroa making their 9th trip to the state finals with their 7th trip over the last 12 seasons. And GCMS making their first trip to the state finals in some time. Well, actually, first trip ever. Jesus. But this, too, I feel will be a very close game. Obviously, GCMS with a very close win over Sterling Newman, who was both of our favorites.
Right.
But with their win today over Sterling Newman, it just validates what we thought all along as far as what West Carroll was and GCMS saying that West Carroll was a very physical defense, which we knew they were.
Right.
So it just emboldens our thoughts and processes moving forward.
Right. And I think about it, try not to be in a disrespectful way. Obviously, in our opinion, and I'll speak on your behalf.
Yes, thank you.
The 1A North is more powerful than the 2A North, because from my perspective, when you have, West Carroll competing with GCMS, and then GCMS is now your 2A title contender, and West Carroll was not at the top of
Class 1A.
Right, so, it's easy to make that assessment. But for me, you break up, my bracket was Sterling Newman against Monroe Forsyth, Newman winning. Well, when GCMS beats Newman, and I had already picked Newman to beat Monroe Forsyth, I can't take away anything from my pick, and I like the Falcons in this game.
Well, and here's where my thing is. Obviously on Twitter already tonight, we've seen a lot of GCMS kids.
Here they come.
Coming out and basically putting out our quote saying that they can't make it to state and they're not this.
Look at that.
Yeah, they did. Okay. And I have to admit that is what we said. We did say that we didn't see them at state.
We are open to criticism.
We are very open to criticism. So, one, hats off, GCMS. You're at state for the first time ever. Congratulations. We're actually glad that you are there, to be honest. So it doesn't hurt our feelings by any means.
North.
Yes. Second, this is going to be a very tight game. Obviously, Maroa Forsyth, very good. Coach Joseph's down there. Great program.
Absolutely.
You're in. You're out. Proven. Great. You got GCMS. I, too, had Sterling Newman going to the state championship game. My original prediction was Tri-Valley beating, yes, Tri-Valley from the same Heart of Illinois conference as you, GCMS, beating Maroa Forsyth in the semifinals and getting the state against Newman. So I, too, am going to take GCMS in this game for the state title of Class 2A. And if they do, that'll mark 3 straight years that the Heart of Illinois Conference has won a 2A state title. Now, as far as the polls, in one poll, GCMS is favored by 6 points, and the other poll, GCMS is favored by 1 point. So,
toss up.
There you have. Exactly.
I hope so.
Everything that we predicted, 1A, 2A state championship games are going to be games to watch, must-see games. So if you're going to be in DeKalb, stick around for the 2A game because it's going to be a great one.
Right, and then leave after that because the EIC is going to wipe 3A. So
yes, Pleasant Plains isn't going to stand a chance.
At least hopefully we'll get to see 2 good ones to begin with. So that's all we can ask for.
So there you have it, Class 1A and Class 2A predictions. Okay, so that will basically recap everything that we've talked about tonight as far as our semifinal matchups and going into our state final predictions. So Shane, we get to go to DeKalb this coming Friday.
Yeah, we basically knew that when the brackets came out, but it's finally here. Wasn't sure which team we'd see there. It was either going to be Lena or Forreston. That much was a given. It's always nice to cover a new team at state, kind of check them off the list, so to speak, even though they've been there. Always fun for us.
First time for us
right.
as far as Lena Winslow being there. So
even better for the school and the kids. Ultimately, it's about them and not us. So we'll enjoy ourselves a little bit too. So works out better for everybody, I think.
Definitely. I mean, both teams, great group of kids between Forreston and Lena Winslow. Hell of a ball game. I just cannot stop expressing
We'll be
how
talking
much
about this
that
for a
was.
while.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've heard it coined as probably game of the century type game, and it really came down to that type of ball game. This is definitely one of those games that today's players will be talking about when they're our age, or even further down the road. So, gosh, awesome game. But Lena Winslow it is. Lena Winslow's here. Tuscola. Got the Panthers, man.
Yeah, Panthers for sure. I mean, I've been picking Lena all year. I'm kidding. But no.
Sorry, Parker.
Right. No,
Rob.
I'm going to jump on that train. No. Yeah.
We are this week.
Right.
I mean,
Kyle, if you see him down there dancing with you, just let him in. He's part of the family.
just let me come mingle with you just a little bit. Enjoy the celebration when it's all done.
No, in all seriousness, we enjoy the camaraderie. I mean, nothing better than making new friends and whatnot. So we appreciate everything everybody does for us.
Yes, I mean, we cannot express how much we generally and genuinely appreciate everything that people have talked about.
We genuinely appreciate it.
Yes.
We always appreciate it.
Yes, always. And, man, state championship week is finally here.
Right.
Go Panthers. Get that title and bring it back where it belongs. Title number 19 to the NUIC Friday. Be there. 10 o'clock kickoff at Husky Stadium in DeKalb. Be broadcasted on 92.1.
Book it.
Book it, baby. Go Panthers.